Okay, in the last video we left off discussing this section of the date due and what this is for. I think it's self-explanatory. I've probably raved on more than I needed to for that. From here on, it's very similar to accounts receivable. If I received an invoice from this particular person here at the end of the month, I would go down the invoice and I would tick off to make sure that the amounts on the invoice were identical to the amounts that I believe I owe them. And if I come along and I say this particular entry here, and let's just go for the last couple of entries, I might say, yes, I agree that I purchased this and it was $275. That's what they've recorded. I'm going to click yes. I click to approve to pay that. This figure here, yes, it's exactly the same. I click to approve to pay it. One thing you might have noticed then, see if you're using this due date, see the 7 disappeared? The moment, if I click this again, I'm reversing the transaction. I'm saying that I'm changing it. We haven't paid it. The moment I clicked it, that disappeared because we've paid that now, so we don't need to see that anymore. So I'm approving to pay that. So obviously you go down your list, you're highlighting it on your invoice or whatever you're getting from them, and you're checking everything off to make sure everything gels. If I go to the other side of the account, that is balancing off the accounts payable. If you have a look down here, the account balance is now $450. If you add these figures here, that's $450. We've already recorded the $1,275 here as being approved. So we're just balancing the account for our purposes. So when we look at the amount here, it now says we only owe this amount. Because if I undone these transactions again, which I'll quickly do that, it takes 2 seconds. If I quickly undo them, you will see that now it says we owe 1,000 and something. Okay, so everything on this first part of the screen is to balance your account or to add to your account. Over here, the payments made is where you actually record an amount that you paid to them. So now I might say that I'm just paying for these two amounts because these two are the amounts I've approved, $1,275. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put in whatever date it is today. I'm going to pay, and 1,275 was the amount, I think it was. So now the moment I enter that and press enter, this screen's going to pop up, and it's the expense screen. So naturally, if I'm paying for an amount on an invoice, it's an expense, isn't it? So now I need to send that to expenses. Obviously, if you don't do it here, you can actually do that directly from expenses if you want. But if you do that, then it's not linked with the accounts payable. So you would do that from here. And I'll show you why you'd do that in a minute. Now, so I'm just going to record anything here just to put a bit of crap so that's there. It says it's got the amount that we've paid. Now, obviously, I pay sales tax. So I'm going to click calculator, click OK, and it changes that according to the sales tax. Okay. Now I'm going to click complete the transaction, and it says here send to expenses. So the moment I did that, it sent it to the expenses, and that has been finished. Now, if I go to delete this now, it's giving me a warning. Okay, because I've sent that to expenses. The actual warning should have more information. I'll find out why. It should actually say here that you've already sent it to expenses. Why you're deleting it? I'll find out why that's not working, and I'll get them to fix that. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into the expenses. I just want you to actually see that. And the reason you would enter that from expenses is so as that you can select the individual account here. And it makes more sense because then as you record entries, amounts of money you paid to this guy, to your accounts throughout the month, they might say, well, we didn't receive last month's check. And you can quickly click here and go, well, yeah, I paid it, and I sent you this amount of money on this particular date. Okay, obviously, if it was a check that I paid by check. So you say, yes, I sent you this check on this date, and they can go back and check their records, and maybe they've entered it and didn't record it against your account. So obviously, if you don't do it, if you record payments directly into expenses, you don't have the ability to select this. That's why if you're recording money if you're recording expenses, so if you've got an accounts payable and you're recording that you paid money, always do it from accounts payable. Always do it from here. Then it's trackable. If you go ahead and just enter it straight into expenses, it is not trackable and it's harder to find your amounts. This is for ease of you to find your amounts, folks. So do it from here. It's logical anyway. Similar to accounts receivable, you have two methods here. We have what we call the standard method. By default, EasyAs sets up and uses the standard method of entry recording. You can have a more detailed entry recording. If I press setup, you can select audit. See, currently it says in use standard. If I select this, it now says the audit method's in use. If I click close, it now says audit. Audit method will be in use for all of your accounts payable now, not just the one account. Every account's payable. What does that mean? It means more work, folks. That's what it basically means. A lot more work. What happens is, see how before when I clicked payment yes, I then had to come over here and enter in the actual invoice number and the amount that I've paid? Well, this column and this column wasn't there previously either. So what happens is, EasyAs has provided you the audit method in case you want to record each individual entry and tick off each individual amount on the invoice as you get it, because you might be going down an invoice that you received from, example, this guy here receives from this timber suppliers. He might receive an invoice, and for whatever reason, this amount here on the invoice says $500 on his invoice, but yet he's recorded it that he only paid $100, and he goes back to his invoice, his receipt he received on the day, and he says, yeah, you know, I only paid $100 worth, bought $100 worth of materials. Their invoice says I purchased $500 worth of materials. So you can dispute that with them, and so you don't want to pay that just yet. So what you do want to do is say you've got this amount and this amount. Oh, well, there's no other amounts, is there? So say you've have this amount on the invoice and this amount on the invoice, but you're disputing this one. You can click to approve to pay this, and if we look on the other side, look what happens. That's the entry, the 2nd of February, the timber supplies foot tables. I'm going to look at here. It's transported that over here. 2nd of February's amount, timber supplies for tables. So it doubles it up. And what that means is it allows you to record each individual entry that you're paying. It says, I'm paying this figure. I'm paying this figure. I'm not paying for this. So you can record what you've paid and what you haven't paid. What that means is, though, is if you have lots of entries, so let's say I have lots of entries on this invoice that they've sent me, these entries were also on that invoice. I come over here, and now we've got each individual entry here. It's more work, but it allows you to audit everything that happens along the way. I can record here that it was on their invoice number, that was their invoice number, and this is the date of their invoice, or the date I'm paying, whatever it is that you decide that date's for, would probably be the date of their invoice for ease of finding. So let's say that the date of their invoice happened to be the 3rd of June, right? So now the moment you enter that, you have to select that to whatever it is. I'm just putting in gibberish here, and send it off. So now that's sent to expenses. Oh, now you've looked at that and you've gone, oh, now I've got to go ahead and do it for each individual entry. So it's more work. You've got to do it for each individual entry, and in the expenses it's going to be recorded individually. Some individuals are going to find for their businesses this is perfect because they need to keep an eye on everything. But what they've allowed up here, because you're going to have to enter this, enter these dates, and it's more time consuming. But with the audit method, the moment you enter the first line, it transposes it up here as well. So I can double click this line now. It's going to put that figure down here. It's going to put this date in this line. The moment I double click it, this comes up for ease of use. So it does save a little bit of time there. So now double click. So if you are using this method, it isn't that hard. It's a little bit of extra work, but it doesn't take that much longer.